No one really tries to be unsafe online.
Enter address for free tater tots.
But every time you give up info and privacy,
So I gave your birth date for free parking.
That's how I got this robe.
you may give up some safety too. Norton 360 with LifeLock has device security, a VPN for online privacy, and identity theft protection, all in one. No one can prevent all cybercrime or identity theft, but you can save 25% or more off your first year. Opt into cyber safety at norton.com/news.
Been thinking about McDonald's all day. Can't get it off my mind. I can already taste it. Ooh, got my mind on my mouth and my mouth ready for some Mickey D's deal.
There's a deal for every moment at McDonald's.
Right now, get 2 of your favorites for just $3.50. Mix and match a classic McChicken, a hot and spicy McChicken, or a juicy McDouble. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on Roto Grinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD. You can follow me there on Twitter. And this is the show where we go over a little bit about yesterday's slate, right? Big slate yesterday. I had a sweat on FanDuel. Didn't turn into anything by the end of the whole thing, but whatever. We'll talk a little bit about today's slate. We got a lot of weather on today's slate. Is it a 9-gamer? It's a 10-gamer. Roth has a bunch of weather stuff up. We're gonna have to worry about that. We had to worry about that yesterday, right? With that Cleveland game. That came. I couldn't switch anything out with a minute to go. Couldn't do it. I couldn't. Just took a bunch of zeros yesterday. And as always, answer your questions, DFS strategy questions in chat. Just post them. I'll get to them. Right, I scroll through, so if you post something and I don't talk about it for 15 minutes, doesn't mean anything. It's still in there. I scroll back. I see your stuff. I see you people in the chat. JoeMac.com, Card Fan, Shannon Lampert, Michael Dompier, Dompier. It could be Dompier. It could be. I'd say Dompier. Ryan Edwards, Sterling Woods, Dario Rosenstock, Jupocalypse, DFS Degenerate, Eric Hitbold. .com. Did I say .com already? Well, good morning. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up. Give me the thumbs. I still look at the apple juice. I still drinking the Gatorade, keeping myself hydrated for being sick over the weekend. So getting those electrolytes, right? You know, like Brondo. It's like Brondo. It's got electrolytes or whatever. It's like plants, whatever from Idiocracy. You know what I'm talking about. So hit the thumbs up button to keep it cold throughout the show. Subscribe if you're new here. And hit the notification bell to know when we go live in the morning, in the afternoon, and whenever the channel goes live, the Roto Grinders channel. Yesterday, it was 7:09, Cleveland and Detroit announced that they're going to delay. Okay, now the game could have played. They sat through like no rain for 90 minutes, and then they postponed. And then they couple of ding, 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 and then we're done. We're done. But if you were listening to Crunch Time, our premium show on Roto Grinders, and you could become a premium member by clicking on the link in the description, getting $10 off your first month. Roth does his like weather updates. I mean, he does a weather update. I mean, you can see his weather updates, right? For free, right? On the weather page at Roto Grinders. He tweets all the time. Kevin Roth WX on Twitter. So it's not like hidden or anything, but he hosts Crunch Time. So whenever there's weather information and stuff like that, he has the most, before he even tweets it, it's up to date, right? And he was talking about that he thinks all these games play, right? They should play, right? All he is a weather dude, right? He's not in charge of whether or not what the teams are going to do. Right, how they're going to react to it, what they're looking at, and basically once he saw that Cleveland Detroit was going to delay immediately, his reaction was get him out, that's hard, that's bad, get him out, because his concern wasn't necessarily the rain that was hovering around in that area then. It was the stuff that was going to come in like 2 hours from now. Right. So his attitude was that if they could start playing through drizzle, like they could get the game in. Maybe there'll be a delay, mid game. And maybe it's a 7th inning delayed and then never starts up again, right? Okay, fine, and you get that in, but they're going to start delayed, then that's going to be a problem. So that was like 709, and like okay, I got Cleveland, Detroit, and not a ton in my lineups on FanDuel, but like it's 709. I couldn't even do anything. I was trying. I went fast to go to global player replace to at least get Jose Ramirez out of lineups, just global, just whatever third base. Give me Justin Turner. Give me someone at third base. I couldn't even get that in, right? Because I went to do it, and then by the time 7:10 done, locked. Sorry, it didn't matter. I mean, for my cash lineup, it didn't matter. I still cashed. That was a pain in the ass. And then you see they have the tarp up, they have people there, and then just hour and a half later, nope, we ain't playing. We ain't playing. But if you were able to get off Cleveland, Detroit, or you were just lucky enough, right? Because they said they're going to start delayed, and a lot of times that doesn't mean anything, right? But Roth knew. Because sometimes what ends up happening is that there's a late start. It starts delayed, and people start bailing. They don't know any better. It's going to rain for an hour and then be completely clear, and then the ownership of that game starts just plummeting. So a lot of times that's when you jump on board it. This wasn't the time. This was not the time to do so. So I did have plenty of Cleveland guys in my lineup on FanDuel. None in my best lineups. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I have no idea. FanDuel, I had a sweat. I was in like third place for I was hovering in the top 5, like for a good like hour and a half of the slate. With parts of my player pool that I had the least of, right? That it was, if it wasn't for a couple of good lineups, it would have been a losing day yesterday, right? That's the way it was. It didn't go according to plan. The Blue Jays were part of the plan, okay? So the Blue Jays I was way heavy on, so that was a part of the plan. Everything else wasn't, right? Now I was heavy on the Red Sox also. Okay, so maybe 2 things are part of the plan. Right. So I was heavy on the Blue Jays and the Red Sox on FanDuel. Okay. But I was really low on the Yankees. Right. I didn't have any Yankee stacks at all. I had Yankees as 3-mans and 1-offs, but no 4-mans. And I out of 150 lineups, I only had 5 lineups with Shohei Ohtani. That's it. Right. That's it. Just 5. Right. I didn't have any Angel stacks or anything. So Yankees, like someone like Judge, like Sanchez, I only had like, I think 7 or 8 lineups. And of course, 2 of those 7 or 8 lineups, I had them also with Ohtani, right? So like, and then with the Blue Jays, and with Marcus Semien in those lineups. So it just happens that the Blue Jays, Yankees, Ohtani ended up getting together in like 2 or 3 lineups. One with the Padres, one with the Red Sox. So I had a couple up there, and all those lineups had Vicente Velasquez, who on FanDuel was only 5% owned. And of course, Velasquez was 6,100 on FanDuel, which means the batters in those lineups are, well, how do you play it for the Blue Jays and the Yankees and a $4,300 Ohtani? Well, you play a $6,100 pitcher that gets 46 points. Velasquez was the bat special of the day, right? If you subscribe to the bat, right, Derek Hardy's projection system, which is an add-on here at Roto Grinders. You pay extra for that. You get the Bat Discord channel, right? Everyone's talking about, projections in there. You get his projections. I mean, Velasquez, I think, projected decently elsewhere. But, I mean, the bat yesterday was Vicente Velasquez and Carlos Martinez. And no one wanted to play Carlos Martinez. And he didn't do bad at all. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts or something? Right? You have to think of long-term samples. That's really the part of what the bat does better than other projection systems, right? Cardi always talks about small sample sizes. Well, the bat uses the longest period. Of course, it starts decaying and regressing after that. But Vinny Velasquez is over his career is not a bad pitcher. Is actually an above-average pitcher. Carlos Martinez is an above-average pitcher. So people attack them or anything. It's like, okay, well, look at Carlos Martinez's last 4 starts or something like that. Okay, that's a small sample size. So to not play him because I understand why you didn't. I would have. Velasquez still projected better than him. But if we take a look at at the bat flip. Ricky D won. And yesterday, the winning lineup is a Baltimore stack because the Astros bullpen. Right? Ricky D wins on position players pitching. Right? 230, 223. I mean, look at this. Franco, Urias. He had Austin Hayes didn't have a home run. Surprised he didn't have Austin to have wins at his catcher position. Right. Urquidy gets injured, inning in the third inning, and the Astros bullpen just turns into the Orioles bullpen. And then in the last inning, it's Robel Garcia pitching and giving up 2 home runs. Right. So Ramon Garcia gets there. Right. Michael Franco gets the bottom of the Orioles lineup, gets there. But hey, that's where you look at the ownership, like nothing. Right? You can play chalk anything around it. You can play 22% own Tatis. You can play 18% own Ohtani, hitting 2 home runs on DraftKings at 4,900. Can they price this guy up? Schwarber hits another home run. Like, why do we even bother? Why do we bother playing DFS anymore? Right? All you have to do is plug in Ohtani, plug in Schwarber. Maybe not today. Obviously, he doesn't get hitting points today. Right? I don't know how. DraftKings is what, a $27 billion company? How much? They're a $100 billion company? They still don't know how to make it so that you could roster a pitcher and a hitter at the same time with the same name. They still don't know, but you can't do it today. But apparently you put in Ohtani and Schwarber and you preload that into your lineup, you guaranteed to win, apparently. At least the past 2 weeks, that's the way it's been. We see here, let's say Larioto, his best lineup. Yeah, here's a Baltimore stack, right, with Austin Wins. Michael Franco, Mullins, Santander, Hayes with the Woodruff and Ray together. Slewfoot. This is not a Baltimore lineup. Morton Velasquez. Then you have the Yankees. 1, 2, 3. It's a 4-3-1. So you got Semien. You got Andujar. He had a good game, right? Andujar, Judge, Urshela, Sanchez. Hog Lawrence. He's in the chat sometimes, right? Yankee stack. And some one-offs, right? Ben Gamel, 0. Yeah, that didn't help you. Yeah, but Marquez almost no hits them. Good thing they were priced up on FanDuel, right? DraftKings, the Pirates, especially that middle of the order was cheap, so they were way more owned on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they when these teams get into cores, FanDuel's proactive on pricing these guys up. They'll leave other guys. They'll leave guys, at 2,600 for no apparent reason in other games. But when Pirates are coming into cores, Brian Hayes 4,200. I mean, like that's what they do. So I didn't have a lot of the Pirates on. I had more than the field, but I mean they weren't that owned on FanDuel. We see here, like Ricky D always has a contrarian type of strategy. That's why a lot of times I don't even show him on the show. He gets very condensed. Like Tyler McGill. Actually had a pretty good game. He got squeezed. If anyone was watching that game, Tyler McGill, he had 3 strikeouts in the first inning, and then all of a sudden, they're not giving him strike. I mean, if you take a look at these pitches, he should have gotten an extra 3 or 4 more strikeouts. But this is the pitching breakdown, right? Woodruff, Gio didn't get there, right? But you see Velasquez, a lot of sharp players. A bunch of them over on Velasquez, who only 7% owned. Marquez was 6% owned. Barely anyone played him. Well, you take a look down here. Fultonevich had 24-point game. Martinez had a 23-point game. Joe Ross had a 23-point game. It's like, do you need to go up here? On a 15-game slate, do you want to play Woodruff Giolito as a combo? Woodruff Ray. And play cheaper bats. Most of the field does that. A lot of the field does it. So a lot of times I'm playing the expensive stacks. I know it's against my brand. Typically I'm the vomit stacks guy. That doesn't work anywhere when people are playing two ace pitchers and vomit stacks. Or just playing stacks that you could fit in because they priced them too low. So you don't have to play the Marlins or anything like that. So yeah, let's take a look at the hitters. I mean, if you just take a look at Ohtani, it's like a lot of like per 75 under Mr. Goodson. Mr. Goodson's plays chalky. So I get it. Yeah, the Padres, Ohtani. Okay, I get it. Kiki Hernandez. Ben Gamel, 21%. The most sharp players are under. Ben Gamble. But still, Red Sox looks like Red Sox for chalk on DraftKings. Red Sox, Pirates, Padres, and Ohtani is a one-off. Yeah, Tommy Pham. He had a good game, 29 points. The Padres were much more chalky on FanDuel. I think they were too cheap. Other than Tatis. Tatis is never cheap. So what's going on in the YouTube chat? Let me scroll back. Scroll back. Oh, Michael Dompier says I'm proper with the Dompier. Dompier! Okay, so I'm good. I mean, I don't know. It could be Dompier. There could be a silent letter somewhere in there. I don't know. Okay, let's see. Eric Hilpold, I apparently pronounced his name right. It's phonetics. What? Shannon Lampert said that the D-backs crushed him. Stacked. They're like the worst offense in baseball. It's a 15-game slate. It's like, well, I could stack against Carlos Martinez. It's like, but it's the Diamondbacks. I get the mentality. It would have made more sense if Carlos Martinez was more owned. But the Diamondbacks are a bad offense. Like, I could understand, like, I would be more likely to stack against Robbie Ray. The Mariners, like, I'd be much... You have to understand you're trying to win contests. You're not just trying to score the most points. So if we take a look here on DraftKings, where you have to use a second pitcher, Carlos Martinez was 1% owned. Okay? Like, you'd rather, if you're gonna play a bad offense, play it at least against an owned pitcher. Play the Rangers against Caprellian. Play the Mets against Morton. Play the Mariners against Ray. Play the Twins against Gio. Even the Cubs against Woodruff. I mean, I'm not saying they even have to do that. But the value of the Diamondbacks being the top, because remember, it's a 15-game slate, all 30 teams. Are the Diamondbacks going to be the highest scoring team on the slate? Well, they're playing against Carlos Martinez. Anything could happen, right? Yeah, I guess so. But I don't think in those terms. I think of what is my easiest path of winning first place. The first thing that I think of is, are there good teams that are going to be under-owned? That's how I do it in every sport. When somehow the Chiefs are under-owned in NFL, I play the Chiefs. Right? Because everyone, it's some other team versus the Jets or some two really good games, two like 54-point totals or something like that. And the Chiefs are playing in a low total game that they're like a 19-point favorite in. And somehow, like Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kelsey are somehow single-digit owned. Like that, because they're a good offense. NBA, same thing. Everyone's playing this guy, and you're playing another guy that's still an all-star, but just in a kind of maybe a bad matchup or something. It's like, you're still playing good players. So I think of the same thing in baseball. Especially since I'm playing more expensive stacks now, since people are playing, trying to jam in double aces in a lot of their lineups. So I'm playing the Dodgers. I'm playing the Yankees. I'm playing the Astros, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox. I mean, list good offenses when they're under-owned. The Nationals when they're under-owned. I mean, they're not as good as they were. Rather than find the really crappy teams just because they have the good matchup on a 15-game slate. On the smaller slate, maybe so. So I'm not going at what pitcher am I attacking. It's like, what good offenses are out there. And how can I build lineups with them? That's pretty much it. I want ceilings. And if I'm not going to get that, I want relative value. I want an easier path to first place. And if the Twins hit Giolito, 23.3 whatever percent of lineups in this contest can't win first place. Right? If Robbie Ray gets hit up, 20% of lineups can't win first place. Pretty much. So I want what's correlated to that. The stack, right? The Mariners. Maybe not even as a 5-man, as a 3-man in a 5-3 lineup. You don't have to do the whole 5-man. But when a pitcher's 1% owned, it's like, What's the value? You're playing a bad offense against a bad pitcher with limited relative value. Carlos, the Diamondbacks would have to put up 12 runs for them to be worth it on a 15-game slate, maybe. The Twins may only have to put up 8. Well, why? What's the difference? The explanation is because 23% of lineups are going down while you're going up. Okay? So since other lineups are coming down, you don't need as many from your stack against that pitcher that's negatively correlated to your lineup. Needs to be. Right? If Woodruff got killed by the Cubs, even for 6 runs, and let's say there were 3 home runs from the Cubs, like you're killing 44% of the lineups as your Cubs lineups go up. Doesn't mean you do that, no, but I'm just saying there's more value in that than playing a stack of a worse offense against a 1% owned pitcher. If that's the purpose of what you're doing, if they project similarly. I'm not saying if they don't project similarly, then don't listen. Then you play the Diamondbacks. But in the bat yesterday, the Diamondbacks did not project well. Like the Royals projected extremely well. I played a bunch of the Royals against Pivetta. Well, Pivetta was only 2% owned. Why are you stacking the Royals against a 2% owned pitcher? Well, they were like the 5th best projected stack on the slate out of 30 teams. I'm not doing it because I'm attacking Pivetta. I'm doing it because they're the 5th highest projected stack on the slate. I don't care who they're facing. I mean, they already project well. But if you're going to play the Diamondbacks as the 24th out of 30th projected team on the slate, you better get some relative value out of it. Well, I hope that people are using the pitcher against them. If they're not, then you're going to need to outperform. You're going to need to get a higher percentile outcome from your team than the other teams on the slate. And other teams on the slate could be just as low owned. The Dodgers yesterday against Gausman. They were low owned. They were low enough owned, right? Why couldn't you play the Dodgers? They're a good team. You could have played whoever. I mean, let's see. So I knew FanDuel, but not necessarily DraftKings. I draft the Rays on DraftKings. We're as owned as the Rays were on FanDuel. But look how many low owned. Look, Aaron Judge was only 5% owned. You could have played the Yankees. Altuve was 4% owned. You could play the Astros. Teoscar was 4%. That's the Blue Jays. Bichette was 4%. I mean, look, you could play these 3%, 4%. Goldschmidt, the Cardinals, the Reds. Look, Jesse Winker was 3% owned. Luke Voigt was 3% owned. I mean, good players. These are good players. Look, the Rockies, Charlie Blackmon was 2% owned. So why are you playing the Diamondbacks? Because you want to pick on a pitcher. Don't look at your projections and see if that's viable. Look, but I'd rather you can't tell me that Stanton at 2% and Judge at 4%. Stanton and Judge, you play over any of the Diamondbacks. Then you're going to say, well, with the Diamondbacks, you were able to play Woodruff and Giolito. It's like, oh, great. So now you have the 2 chalk pitchers in your lineup on top of the 24th best projected stack. How are you winning first place with this? I mean, you can, sure, obviously. Every lineup has a probability of winning. But you're not giving yourself an easier path. You're giving yourself a harder path by playing a worse team with a chalk pitching combination. Rather than just play good players that are 2 and 3% owned. I mean, look, Joey Gallo hit 2 home runs at 2% owned. If you had a Yankee stack and it had Miguel Andujar in it, he had 26 points. Ozzie Albies, the Braves, he had 18 points at 1.73% ownership. Arenado, home run, 1% owned. Why are you going out of your way to play Josh Rojas or whoever, Josh Van Meter, whoever was in the lineup yesterday? Yes, I need to jam in Eduardo Escobar instead of Giancarlo Stanton or whoever. I mean, I understand why, but on a 15-game slate, I mean, you get these low-owned players all over the place. The Phillies play the Phillies against Trevor Rogers. Well, Trevor Rogers wasn't owned, so the Phillies are still a better team than the Diamondbacks. Just in general. I think instead of thinking in terms of what's completely off the board, think of who's good that's not going to be played for because of salary or construction reasons, or because of the context of the slate. There's three great spots, right? You have this team, this team has a 7-run total. This team has a 6.5-run total. And here's this team with a 5.5-run total that apparently no one's playing. 2% of people are playing. And it's the Astros, right? And you can play Altuve and Alvarez and Tucker and Correa. And they're about the same price as any of those other stacks. They're just slightly worse projected. And they're going to be 5 times less owned. That's when you do, but at least you're playing a good team. Yeah, if it's a 7-8 game slate and whatever, and like there's 3 good teams in the slate and they're all being owned, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to get off the board and take a shot on this bad team against a bad pitcher. Okay, I get it. But usually on these large slates, I stick to the good teams because you could find good teams at low ownership. Going through, scrolling through the YouTube chat. Jeremy Moss says the Diamondbacks had 7 lefties against C-Mart, and they were dirt cheap. Yeah, it's already in the projections. I don't care about any of that. I look at the projections. The Diamondbacks were towards the bottom of the list. Actually, Carlos Martinez projected well. You know why? Because the Diamondbacks are a bad team. Maybe sometimes it works the other way. I couldn't have expected Carlos Martinez to pitch well. I mean, he was only pitching against one of the worst offenses in the entire league. I mean, then why didn't you attack the batters? We do that for the Tigers, right? Oh, we got to play pitchers against the Tigers or pitchers against the Mariners. They're so bad. The Tigers and the Mariners are better offenses than the Diamondbacks. Okay? So why aren't we attacking Diamondbacks? Oh, why don't we just play Carlos Martinez against the Diamondbacks? Like, why doesn't it work that way? Well, the projections care about that. That's why Carmark projected well for his salary, and the Diamondbacks projected poorly for their salaries, even though they were cheap. I don't look into any. Well, they're throwing. It's already in the projections. Anything that you say is already in there. So you can't just say, "Oh, they projected the bottom 10% of the stacks on the slate," but here's all these variables. It's like all these variables you're listing are in that number already. So even because of that, they still project poorly. You can't just add on top of that. March Mimic, I know it varies, but do you have a feel on how much you're willing to give up in projection to gain an edge in ownership? As long as it's proportional, it could be as much as you want. And you have to give up more projection and more ownership in the larger contests that you're in. Right? You're playing a 500-man single entry. You're probably not giving up 30 points in projection. Even if you're getting the requisite ownership, even if you're getting in proportion the right amount of ownership for giving up 30 points in projection. Do you need that much leverage in a 500-man small field single entry contest? Probably not. So that's all that matters. All it matters is the proportion and the size of the contest that you're playing. So if, for instance, like the optimal, the most owned, high owned, whatever is 150 points, median wise, and 180 ownership or something. Like if you're giving up 140 median and you're getting now 110% ownership, okay, there you go. That's a good range. If you find other lineups in that range, okay, that's a good range. But if you're giving up 30 points of ownership, that 30 points of projection, that ownership should be down in like the 30, 40 some range. Like that should be a really contrarian lineup. And would it still be viable? Yes, it would be a high variance lineup. Right? That's the type of lineup that's either really well or really badly. But you could play those lineups as long as you get the requisite amount of ownership with the amount of projection that you're giving up. There's no optimal range. They all could have the same EV. Like that lineup, that highly contrarian lineup that gives up 30 points of projection and only has 40% ownership total may have the same exact expected value as the lineup that you're giving up 10 points of projection and only giving up 110% ownership over there. It could be the same EV. just that lineup, that really contrarian lineup, you realize the EV when it like wins first place, and all the other times it like doesn't even cash. So like if we played out this slate 100,000 times or whatever the amount of time, a lot of times, the lineup that is higher projected and higher owned, that's still contrarian enough to win. Like if you ran it 100,000 times and you said let's say you put in your $10 or whatever the entry fee in for that lineup.
The only thing better than grinding all night for your side hustle is your roommate picking you up with Mickey D's breakfast. The perfect pickup deal.
There's a deal for every morning at McDonald's.
Right now, taste breakfast perfection when you get a warm and savory sausage McMuffin with egg for just $2.50. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
You run it out 100,000 times. At the end of the day, there's a dollar figure. Is it plus or minus on average? It's plus. Maybe the other lineup, the really contrarian lineup, is plus also, and they're plus the same amount. But if you take a look at the results over the 100,000, the lineup with the higher projection and the higher ownership, that's still good enough. That's still leveraged enough. Hits first place maybe a couple of times, hits the top 10 a bunch of times, hits min cash a bunch of times, hits the top 500 a bunch of times, and then misses a bunch, but rarely comes in like last place. But kind of it gets enough equity up there. Now the really contrarian one, like maybe it wins first place 5 times, gets in the top 10 a couple of times, and then like outside of that, like it's sitting at the bottom of your contests. So maybe it wins slightly more frequently, but when it doesn't win, it's real. It doesn't even come close, right? So it's the standard deviation of that lineup is going to be way higher. Same expected value though, but that distribution curve of results, if you ran 100,000 trials with each of those types of lineups, like the distribution curve will look different, even though the expected value will be the same. So now, if you had a choice of playing each lineup, if you had a choice of playing just one, mathematically, if I say that the expected value is equal, it wouldn't matter. But you're more likely to probably cash with one lineup and not with the other. But even though it's the same expected value. But let's say you're building 20 lineups, like a lot of people do. Well, if you build 20 of the really high variance lineups, you have to expect that you may have a lot of nights that are 0 of 20, cash at all. And hopefully one of those lineups over the course of the season comes in first place. But you're going to be losing. You're going to go into the 4-seamer, right? The 20 max or whatever. You're going to put in $80 like a lot of nights and get back nothing with those types of lineups. And then there's going to be a lineup, and then you get 3,000, right? You win first place, right? I mean, there'll be those too. The other lineup that's higher projected and higher owned, but still leveraged enough. You put in 80, you get back, maybe get back 60, right? And a lot of times. Now, does that mean you play 20 of one or 20 of the other? No, now you can play a mix. So maybe you're going to play, 5 lineups that are, up there. They know that, okay, they only give up a couple of points in projection, still get enough leverage, kind of looks a little chalky, but you have like a 2v2, a new pitcher. Okay. And maybe you play 5 lineups that are just like, I'm playing the Diamondback stack. I don't care what they're projected. I'm playing this. I'm playing the one-off that no one's playing, highly contrarian lineup. And then 10, you're playing somewhere in the middle. Maybe you do that. Maybe that's your diversification that you do. All those lineups could have the same expected value, right? If you ran out a simulation of you made every lineup possible on let's say on a 15, especially on a 15-game slate, make every lineup possible. Make every at least not like one-off lineups. It would take too much computer power for that. So let's say you make 5-man stacks and 4-man stacks. So you're doing like 4 3-1s, 5 X's, 5 3s, like those types of lineups. And you just make every combination. Every single combination you possibly can. No matter what teams and everything like that. You could probably find thousands upon thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of lineups that have marginal differences in expected value that are positive. Even. So it's like, okay, well, I'm playing 20 of them. Like, which ones do I play? Whichever ones you want. That's the main thing that I talk about here. That's why it's like, do I play this guy or that guy? Well, show me the lineup. What does the lineup look like? What does it project for? What is his ownership? And are you going to be accurate on those things? Right? There are plenty of times they go, okay, this team's going to be under-owned. And then it's like, whoops, they're a little bit more owned than I thought they were going to be. Actually, these lineups have less EV than I thought they were going to be. And it was a mistake to play some of them. Sean V says people winning with Orioles was 100% luck. Okay. Well, Orioles had a chance of getting there. Why not? Look at their ownership. The stack as a whole was less than 1% owned. Everything in DFS is luck. Everything. Everything is expected value. Baltimore Orioles stacks probably, if you built them correctly, were probably plus EV yesterday. Would I have invested a lot of money in them? No. But you could have played an Orioles stack and still played the chalk, and that would have been leveraged enough. So why not? Take a shot. Play Ramon Urias and Michael Frank. Play the bottom of the order and Mullins and Santa. You could have. Why not? Because you could play Ohtani in those lineups. You could play Woodruff in those lineups. You could play the best projected players at all the other positions with those lineups. And I'll never say it's not viable to do that. If you're able to play a stack where even by playing the chalkiest, highest projected players in the other 5 spots in your lineup, you still have enough leverage to win first place in a large field GPP, it's never a mistake to do that. It's almost never. Are you willing to do so? Just understand it's a very high variance lineup. That's not luck. You should have done it. Understand that 99 out of 100 times you don't get any money back. You get nothing. I'm not even saying a min cap. I'm saying you get nothing. I'm not saying not 1 out of 100 you win first place. But like 99 out of 100 times you get 0 back. You get nothing. You don't need nothing back. Are you willing to do that? Then do it. Even if you have I only have 1 lineup, so you could still do it. You should be more likely to do it. That's what people get wrong. I only have 3 lineups, so play more risky. Well, they have 100 lineups. Now, when you play 100 lineups, you're paying 100 times the price. The more risky you get, the more likely you'll lose more money. So sometimes you have something. That's why I said, like yesterday on FanDuel, I didn't play any Yankees stacks, any Yankees 4-man stacks. I thought the Yankees would be over-owned on FanDuel. It turns out they weren't really. But it's not like I X'd them out. I still had them in 3-man stacks. Or Ohtani. Thought Ohtani would be over-owned. Do I X him out? No, he fits in the lineups that he fits into. He only got into 5 out of 150 lineups. But do I X him out? No. Because I can still make lineups with him that are plus EV. I'm just not going to make as many of them. So that's what I mean. So if you want to make Orioles, if you're playing 150 lineups, you're not playing 150 Orioles Diamondbacks lineups. You're gonna by the time you win the money, you're gonna lose $100,000 by the time you're just gonna lose so much doing that. Even if it is plus EV. When you're playing that many lineups. When you're only playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, and you're playing less than 1% of your bankroll or whatever, go. That's when you should be playing high variance lineups. Eric Hitbold asks, stacks versus median one-offs in cash games. But cash games, you don't care about correlation. You have to understand the difference between the payout structure of a contest. What's your goal in cash games? So we're talking about double-ups, 50-50s. What's the difference in the payout structure between those contests and a GPP and the bat flip? Well, there's one humongous difference. In the bat flip, right? We go to the bat flip, right? We go to that contest. Where's that contest? Okay. 50,000, 20,000, 10,000, 7,000. You see this payout structure? It's called a progressive payout structure. That's very top heavy. And gets really top, it goes really toward a hockey stick at the end. Okay? So every point that you get is worth more financially to you. Right? Coming in first place in a double up doesn't do anything for you. What's the payout structure in a double up? You get up to the 55th percentile and you get paid double. Anything past there, any points you get past there are worthless to you. It didn't matter that you even scored them. If you scored 200 points in a double up yesterday, you doubled your money. In the bat flip, you would have gotten $1,000. You would have gotten 50x, a little over 50x. $18 entry on that, right? $1,000. Those points are worth more. Every point you get that gets you closer to first is worth more money to you. In double ups, it ain't. As long as if you're in a 50-50, 100-man 50-50 on FanDuel, coming in 50th place and coming in first place pays the same amount. So you don't need to. The whole reason why you increase the variance of your lineup is so you can have a wider range of outcomes, so you have more access to score higher points. Of course, you're giving up, the likelihood of also scoring less points, right? That's increasing your variance of your lineup. So in double ups, what's the point of doing that? There's no point in increasing the variance. It hurts you. It actively hurts you. You want to maximize for that right in the 55th percentile. So things like correlation and leverage, those are things that you do to increase the variance of your lineup. Right? Play a low-owned player, increases the variance of your lineup. Playing 5 guys from the same team, right? Because they correlate to each other, increases the variance of your lineup. Because if the team does well, all of them do well. If the team does badly, all of them do badly. That increases the variance of your lineup. So in double ups, in cash games, you're looking to lower the variance of your lineup, not raise the variance of your lineup. So correlation and leverage are things that, who cares? You're looking for the best projected lineup. What's the best projected lineup? That if we play this out 100,000 times, we'll score in the top 55th percentile more often than any other lineup. Play that lineup. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what it is. Stacks who cares? Correlation doesn't help you in double ups. It actually hurts you. I could understand even if the best 4 values on the slate all come from one team, and you could play a lineup that is like half a point less projected and only has like 2 of those guys. That may even be better because now at least you're not playing 4 guys from the same team. Right? Because that's technically adding variance to your lineup, even though they are the best projected values. So I could even see playing a slightly less projected lineup that doesn't have as much correlation in cash games. But you don't go out of your way to stack in cash games. You do that in GPPs, where you're actually getting a bigger payout for increasing the variance of your lineup. If you want to play a 5-man stack in a booster, it can tuple up, okay. Because now there's only so many spots. You're playing a 35-man quintuple up and only the top 5 get paid? Okay. Well, now you need a higher percentile score. But of course, the difference between first and fifth still pays the same. But at least then, okay, you have to get higher. You have to increase the variance of your lineup. Okay. And if you want to increase it by using correlation, go for it. If you want to increase it using leverage, go for it. It's worth it now. Double ups, what's it worth? It's not worth much. DFS Degenerate in general, in the stacks page, how often do you change the number of unique players? Default is 1, but is there an edge of moving it to 2 or 3? There's no edge. You're talking about diversification. You have to understand the difference between strategy and diversification. They are 2 different things. Number of unique players between lineups has literally 0 to do with strategy. Literally 0. Nothing to do with strategy whatsoever. Okay? Diversification has literally, unequivocally, Nothing to do with strategy. If I were to ask you, here's 150 lineups. You want to play the ones with the highest expected value, right? That's what you would want in a utopian world, okay? The 150 highest expected value lineups are typically, or almost always, absurdly high variance. Absurdly, like that Orioles stack or something like that, right? Probably even worse than this, right? This lineup that won, right? It had Ohtani and Tatis in it. There's probably a lineup with a higher expected value that has neither Ohtani. Like, it's the same lineup with even lower owned players. Those would be the highest EV lineups. Those lineups. Do you want to play 150 of them? I mean, you can. If you have how many lifetimes do you have to play out of MLB DFS? That's the question I'll ask you. That would be the correct answer. If you're immortal and you have an unlimited bankroll and DFS, MLB DFS, you will be able to play probably 1 million, 5 million slates. More, probably even more than that. Are you in the process of playing 30 million MLB slates over your immortal lifetime for the same payout structures for centuries, for eons? Then the answer is you should play the top 150 expected value lineups, even though you could possibly go 10 or 20 years of never winning. Of now, just literally 20 years straight of never even winning a slate at all. Easily, right? 6,000 slates go by without winning first place. Yet, over the course of that in infinite time, you'll end up with the most amount of money. Because you'll win first often enough out of all those times that you'll get there. Now, is that a realistic scenario? No, it's not. We live in finite times with finite bankrolls and stuff like that. So if you're playing 150 lineups, do you want to play 150 of those types of lineups? Well, if you do, if you want to build it, fine. And do you want to play a lineup like that and have the only difference between the two lineups, the 150 lineups that you're playing? Do you want to play 150 Oriole stacks and just, instead of Ohtani, I'm going to play Vlad Guerrero or something. Instead of Robbie Ray, I'm going to play, and you're just going to change one guy. You're going to have the same exact Baltimore stack, right? And 150 lineups and just change the one-offs. Well, obviously, if that Baltimore stack comes in, like, all of your lineups will be at the top. Right? You'll come in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You'll come in, your line, you'll be all over the top 100, right? But if this Baltimore stack or whatever just does what it's supposed, like 99.6% of the time doesn't get there, well, all your lineups are going to be at the bottom. All of them. 150 lineups at $18 a piece. Okay? How much is that? $2,700? You know how much you're getting back from all those 150 lineups? Zero. Right? If you'd only used one unique player, because I'm building the same, pretty much the same lineup 150 times. I hope you're right. How much money you're willing to lose in order to get to the point where, you're taking up all of the top 100 spots. And even when you get to the top 100 spots, does it even make up for like the full season of you losing $2,700 a slate? Right? That's not strategy. That's just diversification. That lineup could be very highly plus EV lineup. But does that mean that you play 150 versions of that lineup? Well, if you're willing to, if you're willing and able to withstand the swings of that high variance of a lineup, and understand that the EV of that lineup and the variations, the 1v1s of that lineup, are marginally, maybe, I'm just making up an example if this is the case, would at best be only marginally better than other lineups that don't even have Orioles in them, right? That don't even have Orioles, right? Let's say that Diamondback stack, right? Like, let's take a look at this lineup right here with this Baltimore guys in it. Replace the Baltimore guys with the Diamondbacks. Put Escobar, put whoever's in the lineup. Peralta, who is in the lineup? You have Pavin Smith, I forgot. Because I didn't play the Diamondbacks yesterday. So put them in. That Arizona 5-man with the same other Robbie Ray, Charlie Morton, all these guys. The EV of that lineup versus the Baltimore lineup with the maybe virtually the same. Okay. Maybe barely different. Marginally different. So now you're playing 150 lineups. And you have Orioles lineups. Well, why not play Diamondbacks lineups? Well, the Orioles lineups I think are slightly better. Do you have eons in order to realize that EV? Do you have a $700 trillion bankroll? I mean, like what? Like if that's the case, and you're able to play MLB DFS for the next, I don't know, 14,000 years, like okay, that's fine. God, play all your 1v1s off that Orioles lineup. That's fine. Okay, now I understand. Now I get it. The immortal one, I get it. But other than that, if I could show you 150 lineups that have the same EV that include 14 different stacks, like why wouldn't you rather have the diversified one? Even if technically, in technical terms, that 150 set has slightly less expected value than the first 150. 150 set if you're just playing the best lineup and just doing a 1v1 of them. Well, at least when you're diversified, you're giving yourself, you're not putting yourself in the position of like losing $1 million on the playing 150 lineups trying to win. That's really the difference. It's like, oh, I could play plenty of plus EV lineups that have all different types of players in. So I'm not reliant on one thing. I mean, take a look at most sharp players. We go here to, okay, it gets wiped out whenever I do this. But if we go here, here's all the 150 entry people. Maybe Ricky D has a higher, has more narrow diversification. We go to these 150s. All right, Larioto, Slewfoot, Hog Lawrence, Anil, I don't know who Blue 32 is. Mr. Good Seats, RBX, Shit Right Money, right? Need Lunch Money, Dolladino, Dollar Bill W, I don't know. Felix is okay. Okay, so like I just went to the top. I mean, yeah, wow, okay. Most people don't do this, right? This is playing a lot of the same lineup, right? This would be high variance. Right, playing a lot of looks like what Duvall? I don't know what the hell. Okay, I don't know what Felix was doing. Seems like played just like a cash lineup and just rotated a bunch of people. I don't know what happened there. Let's disregard Felix. I don't know what he did. When we take a look across the board of like no one has like a ton. Like when I'm talking about bats, more so than pitchers. To get rid of pitchers. Like we see, even like Larioto. We go to Lariota's exposures. He plays 150 lineups. Like his most exposed guy is 26% on. I mean, like he doesn't have that many players that are even in 1 out of 10 lineups. Right? Slewfoot. I mean, like 20% max. Right? It's very spread out. And it's not because, they're trying to give it as many. They could just play everything. Like, you can't play everything. Trust me, you can't play everything. They're playing as many plus EV lineups as possible, but they could contain so many different players. So instead of playing the top 3 teams that are like the plus and whatever, and then making 2v2s of those, like Ricky D would be more inclined to do something like that. Right, he played a ton of the Padres, but a ton is still a third of his lineups, right? 20% of his lineups, 22%. That's a ton. But you don't see many. I mean, I don't know what Felix was doing. I think maybe CSV error. I don't know, because it's not even stacks. I mean, like he just has like one-off guys or something. I don't know. But you don't see. They're doing it because it costs a lot of money to play 150 lineups. And to go all in on 2 or 3 teams, even if they're slightly better than other lineups, This is a recipe to have your bankroll go like haywire. When you could end up with similar returns by being more diversified. But that's not a strategic question. You still have to play plus EV lineups. These guys are still not just playing lineups for the hell of it. Oh, I'm going to play poorly. I'm going to play a lineup that projects 65 points lower and doesn't give me that much ownership discount, and because I can, because it's one of 150. They're not doing that. Of course, it matters on what projections they're using. I mean, yeah, obviously, player projections could be different. Ownership projections could be different. There are plenty of times. I talk to some of these people, right? I talk to some of these guys that I'm looking at right now. I'll ask, what were you thinking about that? And a lot of times the answer is, I thought they were going to be more owned, or I thought it would be less owned. That type. It wasn't the player projection. It was the ownership projection, right? Because that's what's going to be dependent. A lot of times people ask me that. Well, you went heavy. You played a lot of this team, and they were kind of chalky. Why'd you do that? I was like, yeah, because I thought they would be lower owned. It turned out to be a mistake, and it doesn't matter if they got there or not. Sometimes that's the reason. Sometimes that's the reason. Players that you think are going to be lower owned or higher owned. And sometimes it's the opposite. I didn't play much Ohtani on FanDuel because I thought Ohtani was going to be 18 to 20% owned. Ohtani turned out to be 12% owned. Now, on a 15-game slate, 12% owned is decently owned. I mean, it's decent. But not so much that, I should only have Ohtani in 5 out of 150 lineups. But my decision would have been correct if he was 18 to 20% owned. But he wasn't. So looking at my, if you could, on FanDuel, my lack of Ohtani. So I'd say, why'd you have so little Ohtani? I'd say, I thought he was going to be overowned. And they'd go, 12% is overowned. I go, no, 18% is overowned. Yeah, but he was 20. It was 12%. Yes, but I thought he was going to be 18 to 20, right? In that context, 18 to 20, would you agree with? Oh, yeah, okay, with 18 to 20, I'd agree with you, right? But someone else may have been like, I don't think Ohtani is going to be more than 10% owned. I should play more of him, right? And then they play a lot of Ohtani. He hits 2 home runs, and they're like, he's a genius. It's like, why'd you play so much Ohtani? It's like, I thought he was, and then someone will say, I thought he was going to be under owned, right? It all depends on what you project for their ownership to be. I thought the Yankees were going to be over-owned on FanDuel yesterday. Now, on DraftKings, not so much because they were expensive. Were they owned on FanDuel? Yes. But were they over-owned on FanDuel? No. They were efficiently owned. I would consider them Judge and Stanton. I think they were efficiently owned. They were 13% and 8% or something. I thought they would be much higher. That's why I didn't have any 4-man stacks with the Yankees. But if I knew once it locked what their ownership was, Judge and I said, maybe I should have had more of these Yankees. Maybe I should have had 4-man Yankee stacks. Right? So sometimes it just ends up being a mistake. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, misjudge that. I'm not going to misjudge the player projections. I already have that from the bat. It's the ownership that matters. Then I end up with lineups that sometimes look too chalky. People will say to me, wow, that lineup that you had up there in the 7th place, steak knives, right? The one that you won steak knives with. That seemed pretty chalky. Yeah, I thought they were going to be lower owned. I didn't purposely build it that way. Right? I didn't. Actually, it was a mistake. Had I known that ownership, I wouldn't have even built that lineup. Turns out the ownership was slightly off. So I ended up with the lineup like that. And it did well. Right? Sometimes that's just what it is. Okay. We got weather today. You got to check the weather page. There's so much weather today. Everywhere. There's weather everywhere. Yellows and oranges and whatever. What are they going to do in Detroit and Cleveland? They're playing a doubleheader. Do we have to worry about them anymore? I have no idea what's going on today. But you can find out about that later. Right? Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me the thumbs up. Thumbs. Subscribe if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got Grinders live later today, crunch time, for premium members and also the NBA stuff. We got playoff stuff, playoff basketball. They do a show, premium show in the afternoon for the showdown, basketball, whatever's going on. Are there any stars left? Right? By the time we get to the finals, it'll be, backups and guys off the street playing, apparently. They're getting injured every day. So check that out. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month of Roto Grinders Premium. And I will see you tomorrow. It's Hump Day. So have fun humping. Go hump for Hump Day. And I'll see you tomorrow, as I normally do. Mondays through Fridays, 11 o'clock Eastern, for the DFS pregame show on rotogrinders.com.
Fracture prints your digital photos directly onto glass, making your favorite moments come alive in vivid color. Hand-assembled in the USA, Fracture glass prints are a unique and beautiful way to display and share your favorite moments. Simply upload your photo at fractureme.com, select your size, and your glass print will be shipped to you, ready to hang with just one screw. Use code POD15 to get 15% off your order today. That's code POD15 at fractureme.com.
Your AC works overtime all summer, so be sure to replace your old air filters with new Filtry air filters. They recommend updating HVAC filters at least every 3 months all year round. So order your Filtry air filters today at Filtry.com. Let's clear the air.